Hello, Kidney Warrior. James here from Dadvice TV, your online kidney health coach. And this is Dadvice TV Live. And hey, the holidays are coming and there's going to be a lot of snacking. So we're going to talk about I'm getting all tongue twisted. I almost said low snow because it's snowing here in Ohio, but low sodium snacks. But before we jump into that, if you're new, say hello and write new in the comment. I am tongue twisting like crazy. Woo! I have way too much lemon, in my water. I didn't fill it all the way up with water. I put extra lemon in there. So, whoa, a little tart for me. But if you're new, say new and say hello in the comments so we can get to know you. We have a great, wonderful, and supportive community here helping kidney warriors kick kidney disease to the curb and improve their quality of life with diet and lifestyle changes. And if you are new, let me introduce myself. My name is James, and I am not a doctor. I'm not a dietitian. I'm just a regular old guy who got sick one day, went to the ER, and then was admitted to the ICU for a week because I had kidney failure. Worst of all, I had no clue I had any kidney issues. Well, at the end of that week, they got my GFR up to 13 and said, James, that's as good as it gets. You need dialysis and you're going to need a transplant. Well, that was just over 2 years ago. I never, ever went on dialysis and I never got a transplant. As a matter of fact, all I did was make lifestyle changes, learn about nutrition, eat healthier, pretty much live healthier, and I improved my health overall. I got past stage 5 kidney failure into stage 4. I made it into stage 3, but more importantly, I got rid of every single symptom that was keeping me back, that was holding me down. Today, I have tons of energy. I feel amazing. And there is nothing holding me back. My kidneys, yeah, they're still shot. There's no magic pill, nothing like that that fixes them. They're still the same. But I've learned all about nutrition. I watch what I eat. I watch my sodium, what we're going to be talking about tonight, and other things. And I kind of reduce the burden that I placed on my kidneys. Now, if there is one secret to beating kidney disease, to improving your quality of life, that is working with a renal dietitian. It's easy to go out on the internet and look at diets and say, hey, I'm going to try that. I'm going to try this. But with kidney disease, we each are a little unique and we each are a little different. Matter of fact, the majority of you out there, your doctor told you to watch your sodium, watch your phosphorus, and watch your potassium. Mine didn't tell me that. As a matter of fact, I have to eat more potassium because I'm just unique. I'm different. My body does something weird and I am always running low on potassium. But if you try to eat the diet that I eat, it's not going to work for you. That's where a renal dietitian is like magic when it comes to kicking kidney disease to the curb. Now with us today, back again as she is every week, we have Jen Hernandez, a renal dietitian. Hey there, Jen, how you doing?
Hi, James. I'm great. Hey, everybody. So glad to be back here with you all on this Tuesday evening talking about snacks, which is I'm really glad I had a snack before we did this talk tonight.
Now, tell those that are new what a renal dietitian is and how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so I am a renal dietitian, which means I am a registered dietitian in the US. I went through my internship. I did my bachelor's in nutritional sciences, went through that internship, did my my registered dietitian exam. There we go. And then I started working with people in dialysis about a year after I became a dietitian. I first worked in the hospital and then I went over into dialysis because I, like you, was really scared about the renal diet. And I wanted to be able to master it so well that I could teach it to my patients. So I went into dialysis and I worked in dialysis for several years. I also worked with the National Kidney Foundation to help with prevention and help people catch kidney disease earlier by running free kidney screening, basically health fairs, essentially, is what it was. And then I went back to dialysis, continued doing that until I said, you know what, I got to get back in prevention. And that is when I came up with plant powered kidneys and I started my virtual private practice. So that is what I do now. I help people throughout the US take care of their kidneys and do everything they can in their power to slow down their kidney stage or their kidney situation and prevent going on dialysis for as long as possible. I also work with people through my online course, which is the Plant Powered Kidneys course. It is a 6-week program that my students are actually wrapping up. They just wrapped up last month, and we've been getting really great reviews, and everybody has been reporting great feedback for it. So it is my baby of a project that I've had, and I'm excited to be having it in for the next year to announce to y'all later. But in the meantime, I do have a free Facebook group. Many of you know about it and are in there. It is the Plant Powered Kidneys Facebook group. It is a private group, and you do have to apply to join in a sense. This is not because I ban people, but this is because I filter people to make sure that we're all protected and that we don't get bots or spammy people. So if you are not in our free Facebook group, I definitely encourage you to go. You can Google Plant Powered Kidneys, Plant Powered Kidneys Facebook. I know that you have the link. Yeah, you have the link. So we're good to go. But if you're not in there now, I really hope you do consider joining us because it is a really wonderful group. And James, I know you have experience with the group as well.
Oh, yeah. And for those, I know we have a few people who are watching who are not kidney warriors. I want to say hello to my cousin, Brenda. Hey, Brenda. Great to see you here. Even if you're not a kidney warrior, eating a plant-based diet or getting more plants into your diet. And I'm not 100% plant-based. I still enjoy me some chicken and I dream about steaks, but it's been a long time since I've had any red meat. There is so much you can learn from Jen's free Facebook group, Plant Powered Kidneys. She does recipes. Other people are doing recipes, sharing great ideas, talking about how to make different things, how to add variety, all while being healthy for your body, for your kidneys, for your heart, for everything overall. So it is fantastic for everyone. But I wanted to make sure and mention a hello to Brenda out there. I'm so glad she made it today.
Glad to have you, Brenda.
Yeah, she is working. Let me tell you, Brenda, my cousin, I don't know how she does it, but she is at the gym working out so much, doing exercise, things that I would give up. I'd be like, whoo, I need a break. No, she's at it, going and going and going. She's making her health a priority and working on it, which is fantastic. Way to go, Brenda. And I'll talk a little bit about her. She fosters all these kids and helps give them a home. It does so much for them and is such a wonderful person. So thank you, Brenda, for being here. Now let's talk about snacks and sodium. So let's go all the way back to the beginning because there is a lot of confusion about sodium, especially on the internet. Some places encouraging people to eat lots of it. There's so many things about it that are misunderstood. So Jen, what is sodium?
So sodium is a mineral that is found naturally in the world, on the earth, in our bodies. It is something that is completely organic, and it is something that is really necessary for us. It is not something that we can look at to say there's a no sodium diet or a zero sodium diet. There is literally no such thing. No human being could or should be on a zero sodium diet. That is just not possible. Just like we talked about potassium before, no such thing as a zero potassium diet.
Yep. And what is the difference between sodium and salt?
So, as I mentioned, the sodium is the mineral. It is something that comes organically. Salt, we're looking at basically table salt. This is something that is made and added to our foods, added to our products. It is integrated into the recipe. So this is something that we really want to focus on when we're talking about cutting down on salt or watching our sodium. We're really focusing on the salt part. And salt is composed of sodium, but also chloride. And it's it's about 60% chloride and 40% sodium. So it doesn't even seem like it's that much sodium, but the amount that we use in our day-to-day life, in our salt shaker, that's what really gets us. And that's what we have to pay attention to, is salt in the diet.
Yep.
Sodium, natural, comes in everything. There's sodium in fruits and vegetables, but it is very, very low, very, very minimal, and not a problem when it comes to focusing on cutting down on salt in the diet.
Yep. And you mentioned there is no such thing as a no sodium diet. I made the mistake of trying that right after I got out of the ICU. I was like, okay, I've got high blood pressure, obesity, all these other issues. My heart wasn't doing great. I attempted, and my wife, bless her, tried to help me do a no sodium diet for a few days. Oh,
Yeah.
it was awful.
Yeah.
There's nothing hardly we could eat. It tasted blah. And I did that, and I was getting my labs, and then I started having some issues. They said, hey, now your sodium's too low. How much are you getting? And I then realized, or I learned, we need a minimum of these key nutrients like sodium. There's an amount we have to have, and then there's an amount we don't exceed. And we just need to eat like it's an allowance and fall in that safety range, that Goldilocks zone there. Now, why is sodium important? Because if we don't get enough, I started having some problems.
Yeah. So sodium is an electrolyte in our body. So just like potassium, it has a lot of functions when it comes to our muscles, when it comes to our brain, when it comes to nerve and conduction. It also has to do with our fluid balance, and of course, with our fluid balance, blood pressure as well. There's a lot of functions that salt, or sodium, I should say, that sodium takes on in the body. And that's why, just like you said, James, there's a range. So we did our talk about renal labs a few months ago now, but we talked about sodium as one of those. And there's a range. It's not a no more than this level. It's a 135 to 145. We're looking for a balance of sodium in the body. And if it runs too low, it can be just as problematic as if it runs too high, because your fluids are basically imbalanced there. So we need to have sodium in our body. It is really, really important. It's an essential nutrient that we cannot just cut out entirely and expect our bodies to continue to do what they're doing.
Yeah. And where does sodium come from?
So the majority of sodium, when we're talking about sodium in the diet, comes from table salt. It comes from how we're adding salt to the diet. As I mentioned, with the natural sodium that you find in fruits and vegetables and grains and everything, that is a very, very tiny part when it comes to the sodium in your diet. It's all going to come back to the sodium that's found in foods, a lot of times that are processed, pre-made, packaged.
Oh, yeah. I was watching a video on another channel about what are you eating? I think is the name of it. What are you eating? And he buys something, he cooks it, following the directions, and he talks about it and how much sodium and other things are in it. And he did a Hungry Man TV dinner. Wasn't that big, with 3 little tiny pieces of chicken. It was fried chicken, which doesn't sound that much sodium. 2,400 milligrams in one.
Honestly,
TV
that sounds
dinner.
low to me, to some of those TV dinners.
It wasn't even the XL size, the super big one.
Okay.
But that right there, that's like a ton. That's like
more
than most of us are supposed to eat in a day. And I brought a visual for everybody. So most people, I believe, we're supposed to be around 2,000, 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day. That's kind of a standard that many of us are. Now, some of you out there, your doctor may recommend less, or maybe for some reason recommend more. They're going to give you a number. But that is only about as much as fits in this teeny little tiny teaspoon.
Yeah.
Which Jen and I were talking about earlier. I had no clue until about 15 minutes ago just how little bit of sodium that is. And I know I watch my sodium, but that is like 8 M&Ms worth. That is it. It is practically nothing. When I used to eat watermelon, I would put way more than that, probably on every 2 or 3 bites worth of watermelon, because I loved watermelon covered in salt. Oh.
Well, that is something that you could still incorporate with using more of a pinch of salt rather than the teaspoon of salt, because that teaspoon, it takes a while, I would say. It takes a while to get used to the idea of limiting to that much. But if you think about some recipes that you use, if you're cooking a meal for your family and the recipe calls for like a half a teaspoon, don't freak out right away. For one, take a look at all of the ingredients and see where all the sodium is coming from besides the added. Then maybe you can cut down that added. But think about, this is half a teaspoon that's covering X number of portions. So you divide it by X. So it really kind of spreads out. So when you're looking at a recipe and you see something like a quarter teaspoon or a half a teaspoon, not right away. We don't need to be freaking out until we look a little bit deeper. But in general, people need to keep to 2,300 milligrams. That's the American Heart Association's recommendation for blood pressure control, cardiovascular health. So even people without kidney disease should be on I hate to say sodium restriction, but the way America is going,
it's just our processed food is so excessive in it. We just need to be realistic. And I've gotten used to it. I have no problem now keeping to my daily salt intake. And my kids got some meals from school, and there was this like little cheese dip. And my kids were like, "Oh, Dad, it's awful. Taste it." Why do we do that? It tastes awful. Here, you try.
You need to have this.
They said it's awful. It tastes too salty. And I got a little bit of it on my finger, and I tasted it, and it reminded me a bit of Cheese Whiz back in the day when I used to eat that. But holy cow, it had the flavor of sodium. The salt was just so great. It was unbearable to eat. But I know that 3 years ago, I would have just ate that whole thing, not even thinking about it, because I was so used to having so much sodium and that taste of salt in my food. I think that was the number one taste in my food, was salt. Instead of the flavors.
It really is this whole retraining of your taste buds. When you are coming off a higher sodium diet, even baby steps, it's going to be something, because it's going to be really different. I guarantee when you cut salt out, the taste is going to completely change, and it kind of change the way that you favor food. So you got to really keep that in mind and expect that food's going to taste different, but you got to stick with it, because you will get acclimated to it. Your body will get used to it. Your tongue, your taste buds will get used to it. And then once you basically get over this hill of this acclimation to the salt, and you go back to being able to enjoy less sodium, you will have that exact kind of sensation. Just like James was saying, you will notice, you taste it right away. And I have the same thing. My husband, he has more of that salt tooth, I guess you can call it. So
does my dad. He doesn't taste anything. It gets covered in salt before he even tastes it.
I'm one who can, like, I'll pull back and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't even, like, I can't remember what we had the other night. And then I was just like, I can't, it burns. I taste the salt so badly. So you do acclimate to that change and you get used to it, but you just got to kind of get through that phase of really, I guess, detoxing from the salt really is what it is. You're just getting used to not having it.
Getting your tongue used to flavor. And Hazel mentioned that. All of a sudden, food now has so much flavor that I never, ever had before. Just roasting Brussels sprouts or some asparagus. Wow. And everybody, I know you're going to ask, roasted radishes? Yes. Liked it. I didn't do good with the portobello. I blame me.
No.
I blame me. I have to go to a restaurant and try the portobello. For those that are new, last week I promised to try a portobello mushroom. I tried to make it like a steak. I'm just not good at cooking. I made it awful. It was unbearable. I let the dog eat it. That was it. I'll try it when I go to a restaurant again, I'll order one there and try it, because then I at least know it's cooked right.
Well, I have to give you kudos because you tried it. And that's a big part of just these diet changes, is trying it to see what you think and to think about other ways that you can try it out too.
Yep. Now when it comes to salt, what is your opinion on the difference between iodized salt, from a salt shaker, that generic, highly processed, basic salt, sea salt, pink Himalayan sea salt? What's your opinion on those? Is there one that you think is better than the other?
I feel like people who, if there's kidney warriors in here that have taken my course, they're going to probably answer this better than I could, because that was part of our sodium discussion. And I have a comparison handout in there of the different ones, but I haven't looked at it for so long, to be honest. That is one that's going to be updated for this next year. There are slight differences when it comes to these different types of salt. They will still have the sodium in there, but the mineral sides, essentially, the other pieces of the other components of the salt, that really is going to be the big difference. The actual difference in sodium between the different types, it's a little different. It's not like hugely significant unless you made the switch over and did one, and that's all you did. But even then, that's not the kind of salt like at your home cooking. That's not what I'm concerned about so much as I am looking at what's in your pantry and what you're using for your kitchen and what you're getting when you go out to eat. All of those kind of things make a much bigger difference to me. So whatever kind of salt you're using at home, that's your call. I really think it's a preference. I don't think there's going to be a significant difference between any of them.
Yeah. So what I use is the pink Himalayan sea salt, just because it has the extra minerals in it. I figure if I'm going to use some salt, let me make it a little tiny little sliver better. It's minuscule, probably doesn't even make a difference. But a big thing with my salt, and this was something my doctor recommended to me, and I love it, I got rid of the salt shaker. I use a salt grinder so that I'm more in control and I'm aware, okay, I'm putting salt in, I'm putting salt, instead of just shake, and a bunch of salt comes out. I have to kind of work at it so I'm aware how much I'm putting in there. And I could not imagine grabbing a salt shaker because I can't control it. And what you mentioned is so right on. My biggest fear with sodium. And now that I'm kind of used to it and I know how to cook my own food and eat within my range, is eating out. I have no clue what they're doing. And those are people who are like I used to be, accustomed to a much higher amount of sodium. So they really drive up that salt flavor. And then, processed food. When I first started reading labels, which was new when I got my kidneys shot, was reading labels, I could not believe how many things had an entire day's worth practically of sodium in one thing. And it may not be it's not always a meal. It's something like a part of a meal. And you're like, but I have the rest of the day to eat.
Yeah, some of these things can really add up. And in college, I worked in a restaurant, and when I would go to the back and I would grab the meals for the customers. You just know that in a restaurant, most likely they're not thinking, okay, we got to keep it to this much sodium. We've got to be careful about this, but it's no. We don't want them to complain about the food. So we've got to be really, really on point with flavor. And that usually comes being a little heavy-handed with the salt because we are so used to eating more salt. Now, if we all stepped away from salt and really worked at eating less salt, then we could start telling restaurants, hey, your food is too salty. And then they could start pulling it back and we would all get used to eating less salt. But that's a huge kind of platform. That's a huge, big initiative to get everybody on that same page. So we
Yep.
can start here, and we can focus on what we can do in our own house with the foods that we choose and that we make.
Yep. And Sean asked a great question here. Mrs. Dash, which I believe just changed their name of their product to Dash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they dropped the Mrs. So many things are changing the names of their products. He mentions, I don't use Miss Dash, but he mentions it sounds like it may contain a lot of phosphorus and potassium. I know a lot of salt substitutes do, but I believe Mrs. Dash does not, and that's why a lot of the kidney sites recommend it. It's a mix of spices.
Mm-hmm. And Mrs. or Dash, they are great about making these different spice and seasoning blends without salt. They do not have, last I checked, they did not have any potassium or phosphorus additives. They are very kidney safe, kidney friendly, and wonderful as a substitution for that spice kind of flavor. And I love all the different varieties that they have.
Oh, yeah.
I will say these salt substitutes we really do need to be careful of. And when I say we, I mean anybody with any kidney issues, you need to be careful with salt substitutes. There's I know there's a few of them out there, like new salt or no salt or whatever. It basically, they take the sodium out and they put potassium in. So I said before that salt is sodium and chloride. Those salt substitutes are potassium chloride. So they take one mineral out, they put another one in. That means it is crazy high in potassium. So you do not want to use a salt substitute that's potassium based as a replacement, because it is going to, again, cause potential problems with your potassium balance, which can include cardiac arrest if it gets to a serious problem. But there are so many other companies out there that know that we want to have spices and more flavor when it comes to our food. So like Dash and these other companies are creating those kidney-friendly opportunities.
Yep. Awesome. And a few people were asking about salt causing water retention and bloating. Yes. Your kidneys manage the amount of sodium in your blood as well as water fluid to manage your blood pressure. And when that gets out of balance, too much of one or the other, you can start retaining fluid. And especially when our kidneys are not doing well. I remember when I was leaving the hospital, my shoes would not fit back on my feet because of all the fluid, and my knees went straight down to my ankles. My legs no longer went in like they used to, which is also, that could be bad around your heart, could be bad around your lung, make it difficult breathing. I remember the first few nights in the ER, throughout the night, I was hitting that button almost in a panic attack because I had so much trouble breathing, even though I was on oxygen, just from all the fluid retention that I was having and the pressure being placed on my lungs. So we want to keep our sodium under control. And someone I think may have joined us a little bit late, they asked Jen about how much sodium on average is a person supposed to have in a day?
So 2,300 milligrams is the general recommendation to limit. Sometimes you can get a recommendation as low as 1,500 milligrams. I don't typically see much lower than 1,500 because, again, this is something that your body still needs some of. So 1,500 is typically the lowest I see, and that's for people with severe kidney failure on dialysis, cardiovascular issues, a lot of things going on that we really need to cut back. So keep that in mind. There's a range, not a let's try to go to zero.
Yeah. Now, before we jump into snacks that are good, that are low sodium, what are some common high sodium foods that we got to keep an eye out so that our little that's high sodium alarm can kind of go off and we can know to stay back or have very little of those?
So right off the bat, think of any of those crunchy snacks that you think of that don't say low sodium or reduced sodium or anything like that. So we're thinking chips and nuts and not trail mix per se. It could be though, because trail mix, if you've ever had some of those, they're pretty salty because they like to balance off that sweet. So some trail mix can be
cover
pretty
those
high in
nuts
salt.
in it, or if they have pretzel pieces in it, those little giant chunks of salt, you can see them on there.
Yep. Crackers are another one. Any kind of cracker or biscuit or bread. Bread is another one that people tend to forget about. And if you're going to do a snack like a half sandwich, a piece of bread can run you over 300 milligrams just with that one slice if you're doing a
Mm.
half sandwich. So if you do a whole sandwich, that's 600 milligrams plus whatever you put in your sandwich. So bread is something that people tend to forget about, but it can be really high in salt.
Yep.
Um, any kind of cured meat or
Ooh.
preserved processed meat can be very, very high in salt, extremely high in salt. I remember this past weekend I was going through the groceries. I would go through the grocery store and I was looking for some examples and to get some ideas of these low sodium, reduced sodium. I think it was beef jerky I came across, and I
I was
literally
just
laughed
thinking
out
about
loud.
that. And let me tell you something.
I,
When it comes to beef jerky, I I love beef jerky, especially when I travel because I can chew it while I'm in the car. I used to buy the big bag. That was one serving to me.
yeah,
But it's scary when you look at the labels
yeah,
because that's like 10 servings.
oh yeah, yeah.
And each
It's
serving
nothing.
is loaded with sodium.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so easy to get like, I don't know, like a week's worth of sodium in one little sitting.
Yeah, it really is. And that's where I think some people they think, "Oh, why are we doing snacks?" Like snacks, that's just a little part of our
Mm-hmm.
day. Like why not the meals? Snacks creep up on us. And when you are just going to grab something between lunch and dinner or whatever the case is, that's when things can get out of control fast because we're just kind of munching and not paying attention. And it can turn into a meal size situation
Mm-hmm.
if we let it. And that a lot of those snack foods are what are high in sodium. So if we're eating a lot of those, that is what can skyrocket our sodium levels and can skyrocket our blood pressure, make that edema and that swelling come back, trying to the body trying to dilute that sodium. It just becomes problematic, and it's one of those things that people tend to forget about. So
Mm-hmm.
focusing on snacks can be a small change that really gives you bigger results in how you feel day to day.
Yep. And Gail had a good one. Ham. There we go.
Yeah,
All those
very,
cured
very.
meats. Oh,
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
yeah. I miss ham. I don't even try it because I know it's so high in sodium and it's
Yeah.
hard to manage your portions of ham because it's just delicious. To me, ham is like deviled eggs. I can't eat just a little bit.
Oh,
Deviled eggs are my weakness, especially if they're made with pickle juice.
hmm.
Oh,
I mean, you could find like maybe lower
oh.
sodium pickle juice because sometimes with vinegar, that is
No,
a
you haven't seen me eat
brininess.
deviled eggs. It's
Oh.
by the platter. They're just delicious. I can make a whole meal
Yeah.
out of deviled eggs. And ham is like that. So I avoid ham. Eggs, I just make a few and I
Mhm.
eat those and I'm done. So what are some other snacks for us to be careful of or other things that are high in sodium we need to watch out for?
So you do want to pay attention to canned. Now, we've talked about this before, and I'm not saying don't have canned food. So canned beans, canned vegetables. What I'm saying is get the ones that are low or no added salt because that is where it can also add up pretty quickly. I mean, beans, I come from Arizona, the whole Southwest and Hispanic culture, beans, that's something that you have. You can't have beans without salt. I would be a very, very cruel person to say don't put salt in your beans. So that is something that needs some salt, but we got to be careful with how much is in there. So getting canned beans with a lower salt can be a much better way to still enjoy them without taking in all that extra salt. So think about some of those things that are already basically set up good to go. Another one is canned soup. That is a really,
Oh,
really, even the ones that's the one that really kind of gets me because even the ones that are labeled as, healthy for XYZ reasons, they still are high in salt. Even the ones that
yes.
say that they're usually like more reduced sodium instead of low salt, which we can talk about that, but it
Mhm.
it is a it's a marketing
Reduced just
ploy, but
means
it's
not as
still.
not as much. It doesn't mean there's
Yes.
There doesn't mean it's low. This means not as enough.
Exactly.
And no sugar added. That's another tricky one.
Yeah.
Pure sugar has no sugar added. It doesn't say there's no sugar, just none additional added.
We didn't put any extra in here.
Yeah. And then a few people are talking about pepperoni and pizza. Pepperoni, yes. That's another cured meat. And then pizza. When I used to eat pizza, I had to only eat it at lunchtime back in the day. I couldn't eat it at night because I would wake up all night long thirsty because of all the salt that's in the sauces and in all the toppings. And of course, I get mine coated in black olives and green olives. Oh, I miss those days. But yeah, pizza is another one of those things just packed with so much sodium.
Absolutely.
And then we mentioned salted nuts and like trail mix and stuff like that. The soups. And then probably the worst one, the one that was hard for me to give up, hard habit for me to break, fast food.
Yeah.
Just loaded with sodium. I mean, now I tried something not too long ago somewhere. Oh, it was Popeyes, their chicken sandwich. We got one, so I wanted to try it because everyone's craving about it, saying it's better than the other place, which I can't remember, the one that's not closed or not open on Sunday, Chick-fil-A. And I can't remember what Chick-fil-A tastes like, but I know I used to love it. And I tried the Popeyes one, and boy, it just had, there's one little bite, such a strong flavor of salt. It was like, woo! Even the bread tasted salty. So that
I would imagine.
That fast food.
There's another one that we didn't mention. I almost forgot, but bacon.
Oh, yes.
Bacon is high in sodium, and it might not seem like it, but maybe it does. Maybe you've tasted some different kinds, but yeah, absolutely. It is something that adds up. And that's, fast food restaurants, they put bacon on a lot of their stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that also
I used to own a restaurant, my wife and I, in Seattle, and oh my goodness, the amount of bacon that we made, because bacon made everything good.
Because the salt and the fat.
And we were sandwiches and hot dogs, kind of like a Subway style where we make it in front of you. So neither of those were good. That's all processed meat, especially the hot dogs. It's the worst part of the meat. And then we're wrapping them in bacon and cheese and everything else. Like, oh, if only I knew about nutrition back then, I would have made a few more healthier items. But yeah, bacon, that's an easy one to also snack on. My wife makes it for the kids. They'll like some bacon, and I'm very good at walking through the kitchen and not grabbing it. But there's a time where I used to walk through the kitchen and I would pick a piece of bacon up and I'd make a reason to go through the kitchen again just so I could get more bacon. And I would be going back and forth for no reason just to pick up one piece. Doesn't matter, just one piece. All of a sudden you've eaten 8 pieces.
Yep, exactly. It's those passing through and just grabbing what's ever there, and that's what adds up.
Yeah. So let's now look at the low sodium snacks, the good snacks.
Yes.
For those of us with kids. You guys, I'm in a good mood today. I usually don't make singing noises like that, those of you that are new. But it's the holidays. We had some holiday music during the countdown earlier. My car gets wrapped tomorrow. Oh, I'm so excited about that. I'll pick it up on Friday. Woohoo! Get to drive the Dadvice TV mobile. I'm going to go around everywhere and take pictures of it. Visit all the dialysis centers. Just drive by real slowly. Hey, check out the website.
Exactly. You still happen to be there.
Yeah. Well, and I know a lot of those people are watching. And as soon as COVID's over, boom, we'll take pictures, post them on social media, all sorts of stuff.
Yes.
But anyway,
absolutely.
What are some good low sodium snacks for us?
So I think it's always great, and I wouldn't be doing my job as a dietitian if I didn't first encourage some more fruits and veggies. And it doesn't have to be like you're sitting there just munching on a carrot. It doesn't have to be so boring like that. You can pair it with a dip or a spread or something like that. to give it more flavor. But you just want to check and make sure that the sodium in those dips are at a lower range, so that it's something around 5%. A little bit lower would be awesome if that would be the case. You can make it yourself. I've talked to a lot of people who say they love making their own hummus. You guys
Mm-hmm.
make your own hummus, right?
Yes. And as a matter of fact, brand new blender arrived today with the
Nice.
big old the stick thing in it. So
Yeah.
we can make our hummus easier. Because we had a blend tech, which still works amazing, but you can't put the stick in the blend tech, and it's not too great for making hummus because it kind of all sticks to the side. Got it with the Monday or the holiday sales this
Cyber Monday.
weekend.
Yeah.
Yep, Amazon delivered it this morning. It's already
Nice.
on the kitchen counter out of the box. So can't
Nice.
wait to break it in the next few days. Definitely be making some dips. Lots of dips and then lots of healthy smoothies for the kids.
Yeah. So hummus is one of those things that's really, really easy to put together. I did a video for it in the Facebook
Mm-hmm.
group a while back to show how
And
easy
you
it
did
was.
it in like a food processor, if I remember right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think I did it in my blender. I did just get a food processor with Cyber Monday
Something
deal.
you did was
Um,
or somebody used a food processor I was watching. I can't remember who it was. I got to get one of those.
yeah, I'm
I
so
gotta,
excited for mine. I'm excited for my whole kitchen, to be honest. But the food processor is a really easy thing to use to make your own hummus or your dips or spreads. And when you make it yourself, it seems intimidating at first, but I promise
oh,
it's
so
not, it
easy.
gets easier. It is easy, right? Once you do it, you're like, oh, that was it. Like I
And
could
it's
do that
so
easy.
affordable to make it compared to
Yes.
buying it.
Oh yeah, so much easier. So by pairing your veggies with a dip, that can make a really satisfying snack, and you can have more veggies to make it more filling compared to something like chips.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you really want chips, if you want to do something in that kind of still crunchy, really super crunchy arena, they have some great veggie chip options or more whole grain chip options that are still lower in sodium. So I'll share some specific brands with you guys on my website at the end of the show because we have some examples for
Mm-hmm.
you of what we have. I should have grabbed the chips that I have in our kitchen right now because one of my favorite brands is Late July, and there's a sea salt and lime, and you think, oh, they put sea salt on the label. That's kind of confusing. It's lower in sodium, but it is. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
reasons is because they add the lime, and
Yeah,
that
I was gonna
helps give
say
it
that.
more flavor.
When I get any kind of, my wife loves buying healthy chips because they have chia
Mm-hmm.
seeds or something like that. So that classifies as healthy. And some of them are healthy. You know, you always got to look at those labels. Some aren't. But
Right.
some of them are really healthy, and I'll take a bite and I'll be like, oh, good. Doesn't taste good to me. Oh, I sprinkle some lime on it. Oh, lime is like bacon.
Yep.
It can make things taste great.
Exactly. And a little goes a long way, just like bacon.
Yes. Yeah, so
So
that's
I
very
think
good.
I think those are some good options. There are some good brands that are out there. I mean, even the ones like Ritz has a hint of salt option. So instead of the regular getting the hint of salt, and that's low in sodium, the wheat thins have the low sodium option. Trying to think of some other cracker brands that are obviously low in sodium. Those are the ones that come to mind because I've got those before. Um, but a lot of companies are realizing they need to be careful with sodium because that is a consumer concern because blood pressure, kidney issues are so much more common now and people are paying attention to them. So even just looking at your favorite snack and then looking to the left, to the right, below it, above it, look somewhere in that vicinity in the grocery store to see if you can find that same brand that just has less sodium, and that will be doing yourself so much of a healthy favor, and you're gonna be able to enjoy that snack still, just with less salt. Again,
Yep.
get your body used to taking less salt, and it'll go a long way.
Yep.
And let's see, I
Now you
have
mentioned
another one.
hummus.
Oh,
What about nut butter?
yeah, absolutely. There are nut butters that are low in sodium. Again, if you're looking at just the regular I'm not going to say any specific brand names on this one, but if you look at just the regular nut butters, like peanut butters, some of them can be really high in
Mhm.
salt, but then also they have added fats and oils and things that just aren't needed. So when it comes to nut butters, I definitely recommend looking for something that literally has one ingredient on it or in it, and that
Yes,
ingredient is the nut. So if it's peanut butter,
exactly.
ingredients peanuts. If it's almond butter, ingredient is almonds. That's all it takes to make them. They do not need to have all these other things added to it. In fact, it makes it better for you when you're using it in your recipes and when you're using it if it doesn't have anything else added,
Mm.
because you can customize it yourself. You can add cinnamon to make it a little bit sweeter. You could
Ooh.
add a little bit of your own pinch of salt to it, which will be less salt than what they would have put on it. You can add a little bit of honey to it. You can just change the flavor. You can add it to some curry, uh, really whatever you want. Peanut butter is very, any kind of
I've
nut butter
never
is.
tried it with oh, actually, I have. Chicken satay is
Hmm.
is like peanut butter, natural peanut butter, and a little bit of curry.
Hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
And there's great peanut sauces that use you can do the peanut butter with some low sodium soy sauce or some coconut aminos, but make sure the coconut aminos are actually low sodium, because I
Mhm.
have found a lot of coconut aminos that are still high in sodium. So be careful with that as well. You always have to read the labels to be sure. Don't just assume because it says it's one thing that that's what you're getting. So
Yep.
nut butters make a great pairing for a fruit or a veggie. And I know, weren't you telling us about carrots and peanut butter before?
Oh yes, carrots, peanut butter, celery, and peanut butter.
Yeah, celery and peanut
Oh,
butter. I always love apples and peanut butter.
well, apples and peanut butter. I used to love apples and peanut butter. My before all of this kidney problems, it was apples and caramel for me.
Oh,
I only ate apples with caramel, covered in it and
okay.
then dipped in it. Now I love
Okay.
apples. I'll eat them plain.
You
I
do.
chop them. I'll sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon on them, like very little. Oh, great. So
Hmm.
many different things. And my son, he loves apples more than me. He eats way more than me, and he wants to try apple pie. So we're going to have to
Mm.
find a good apple pie somewhere for him to try. He's never tried it.
Oh, wow. Okay. He's in for a treat.
Yeah, and passing A, are pecans okay? Yeah, pretty much everything's okay, just within moderation. Some things are
Hmm.
higher in certain things. We can't eat a whole bunch of them. I love pecans. I love almonds, good source of fiber there. I love walnuts. They go a long way, especially added into a salad or stir fry. That's my go-to meal. I
Hmm.
sprinkle a few of those in there and boom, it's good. On Hazel saying apple and honey. Ooh, I've never tried
Ooh.
that. I bet you my son would love that because he loves peanut butter, honey, and chia seeds on a sandwich.
Mm. I
I'll
would
take,
say for the nuts, really quick, make sure that you're getting them unsalted, because if they're
yes.
not specified as unsalted, there's a chance that there's going to be a lot of salt on them. Even the ones that are low in salt, I personally find that they're a bit salty. I like the good unsalted ones, and then you can add your own spices and seasoning to it, and it's so much better.
Yeah, awesome. And Jane's asking about, or Jane and Bill's asking about pistachio nuts. I learned pistachios are not a nut. They're something, a lagoon.
I
I'm
think they're
so
a
bad at
legume,
all.
yeah.
Yeah, lagoon. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Like
like, I don't
peanuts
remember if
too.
that's the right word or not. That's what they are.
Yeah.
I love pistachios. Oh, the only thing I don't like about them is cracking open those little shells, because I could sit there and just eat. I could eat a gigantic bag, and then all of a sudden my fingers are all sore.
Mm.
So I
That's
keep
the
them.
built-in portion control. It's making you slow
Yeah.
down.
Oh, Pat says cinnamon pecans. Oh
Yes,
yes. Oh, great. You guys are
exactly.
getting me hungry. I'm going since my car's getting wrapped tomorrow. I had to get it all cleaned, and then I had to get the a sealant put on it, and had to give it 2 days to cure. So I have not been able to drive. So I'm going to get groceries tonight after this, and then I get my car back Friday evening, and I am
Oh.
hungry. We're talking about all this good stuff. I do this every time.
We've got to plan better for this, I think. I had
Yeah.
my so before this I had a tahini spread, that I got from Trader Joe's, but I was looking at the ingredients and I know 100% I can do it
Oh,
myself.
oh, it's so pricey, but they make a good one at Trader Joe's. It's affordable. I used to
Hmm.
love that. Restaurants that would give it like unlimited. We used to have it in Mission Viejo, California. We had an Italian restaurant that would give you unlimited of that. Oh my goodness. I got my
Really?
money's worth, that's for sure.
Wow. Yeah, I
All right,
loved it.
so
I
we're,
just had
we're
it with
getting
some
close to the
cucumber.
top of the hour. I think we're only about
Oh
a
my
third of the
gosh.
way through our healthy
Well,
snacks.
luckily we've got resources, right? So,
Yeah.
okay, I'll look off my list to make sure I'm keeping up faster, so I'm not thinking too hard about it. Okay, so some of the snacks we're talking about, again, crunchy, crispy kind of snacks. Look at some that are more plant-based to take out from the chips, because chips are
Hmm.
tortilla or potato, which are fine, to have and to include, but it's kind of good to change it up a little bit. So
Yep.
they do great roasted chickpea snacks now, which if you've not had roasted chickpeas instead of chips, so good. I will say,
Ooh.
because they're a bean, they're a legume, they're a pea, they're higher in protein. So if you do need to be careful with your protein, just keep that in mind. Same thing for roasted edamame. That's another great, super
Oh,
crispy, crunchy snack.
love edamame.
Mm-hmm. Yep, those are some really good ones. And then there's other companies now that are coming out with basically pre-popped or bagged popcorn. So there's Skinny Pop and
Hmm.
Boom Chicka Pop, which I think is so fun.
My kids
But
love
they,
that one. Yeah, and it's in a
yeah,
gigantic bag too, and it
yeah,
weighs like nothing.
yeah, exactly. A little goes a long way because it's light, but it can be filling. It has fiber. It's popcorn is a whole grain. So just make sure you check the sodium on those. They do have low sodium options. And another hint for you, for a lot of these companies, just like I said with Late July, for these popcorn, usually if they say sea salt or they put salt on there, there's a better chance it's lower in salt. And it sounds very backwards, but usually I've found that when they say salt is the flavor of that bag, it's lower in sodium than their other options.
Yep, it's always a great idea to check the labels. And if you
Yes.
even if you're used to something, I always check the labels just in case they change the formula. Because I've had a few
Oh, yeah.
things where they make a little modification, you can't even tell from the packaging, and all of a sudden something's a little bit out of whack.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
Cheryl says
definitely
she
want to spot
loves
check
Skinny
them.
Pop. So does my wife.
Yeah.
She buys it in the bags.
Hmm. Yeah, so those are great. I also really love the Kind bars. I love
Hmm.
that they are so tasty and that they are very conscious about being a whole food and not being super processed. So I
Hmm.
really love the bars. I especially love that they came out with the mini bars, which is
Ooh.
perfect for a snack option. I've seen them at Costco, I've seen them in the grocery stores. I mean, they're pretty good about being all over the place. So those are a really good one. There is a lot of granola options, which I believe we've talked about before. I want
Yes.
to say, yeah, so granola makes for a really great snack. You can make your own trail mix using some granola, mixing it all together. Really, really easy. Just something that you just grab a handful of and you're good to go. But don't eat it without paying attention to it because then you're like, well,
Yeah.
where'd my food go? I didn't eat anything. I'm still hungry. I'm like, oh, my hand's empty. I think I ate it. So make sure you give yourself a second, enjoy your snack, pay attention to your food so that your brain and your body can pay attention to the food as well.
Yep.
All right, are we doing good? We're doing good.
Oh no, we're doing good. I just want
Okay.
to make sure we get
Um,
to all the items because it's so easy to
I
talk
know,
about so many other things.
I know. But we always have such a good time just talking about all this stuff and
Oh yeah, so
we just go down more
informative.
stuff.
So much great stuff here.
Okay, so let's do a little bit of let's talk a little bit about again kind of why we want to focus on the low sodium, and I did highlight a bit about this from before, but really when it comes to focusing on low sodium snacks, you're making a small change in your daily plan and your daily habit that really adds up, because if you're having 2 3 snacks a day in between your meals,
Mhm.
that is going to add up to hundreds of milligrams of sodium that you are saving and cutting down for yourself for something that you may not even be paying attention to when you eat.
Yep.
It's not ideal, but I know it's what happens. So it's great if we make a change there because we might not even notice the change if we're not paying attention to what we eat.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I noticed, especially with staying home so much more the last 7 months or so, it's so tempting to walk through the kitchen and just grab a little bit of something, but those little somethings, they add up. So
Mm-hmm.
one thing that's worked for me is keeping like apples around, carrots that are cut, celery that's cut, having some kind of something to dip it in or eat with it so that I can reach for those instead of a little bit of this or a little bit of that.
Yeah, it's definitely a great idea. You want to make the fruits and the veggies something that is really, really easy, low barrier. You're not thinking, oh my gosh, I have to cut it and I have to prep and I have to do, I'll bring the cutting board out. Like every single step is one more vote against that decision because it's another thing that you have to do. So by
Yep.
having things done, prepped, and for some people, I've recommended to clients before, if you want to look into if you want to look into getting some of those plant-based meal subscriptions or getting the pre-cut fruits and veggies in the grocery store, the bags of salad that have everything there is no shame in that. The
Mm-hmm.
easier, the better. The goal is to get more fruits and vegetables in. That's it, plain and simple. So whatever it takes for you to get more in, that's what you should be doing for yourself because it's
Yep.
going to pay off in the long run. We don't think of it now because we're investing in our health, but I promise you, down the road, you will notice it, you will feel it, and you will be so grateful for these small changes that you make, even when it comes to making a tweak in your snack option.
Yep. Now, for those that want to learn more about snacking, why it's important for those with kidney disease, more than what we've talked about so far today, you have a blog post added to plantpoweredkidneys.com under the blog that goes over 20 different snacks, including, and I just pulled it up right here, you have a brand of Rice Krispie Squares on here in the good section. Like, yeah, a brand called
Exactly.
Made Good. I've never heard of them.
Yeah, I think the great thing about shopping online is that you can get introduced to a lot of brands that you wouldn't come across in your grocery store. So I think taking a look online is a really good way to see some things that you again would not
Mhm.
normally be able to find. There are so many options online and these companies do a great job of getting it out, getting it sent out, especially we're talking about snacks, we're talking about things that are packaged or processed or dried goods. They don't need to be refrigerated. So it's an easy way to get it ordered. And oftentimes you can order it in a box. Let's say if you get a bag of something, you order it in a box of four so that you don't have to order it so often.
Mhm.
You just want to make sure you like it, I would say, or be able to share it with people.
Yep. Yeah, and here we got Rice Krispie Squares. Yes, I just saw that. I'm like, holy cow, the brand is Made Good. I'm gonna have to look that up and see where to get it. Now, Joyce, you mentioned dried fruits. Be careful with dried fruits. While they are good, it's easy to eat too many because they get shrunken down, and now you got all that sugar that was in there in a smaller. That sugar's still there, so it's easy to eat a whole bunch of something when it's dried. You gotta be careful with that portion control. Don't sit down with dried fruit and Netflix. That's that's not a good combination.
I would definitely say I think dried fruits are great, but my focus is often on the potassium because just like you're talking about the sugar is still there, potassium's there,
Yeah.
and potassium adds up really fast. I still think dried fruits can be a part of a kidney friendly diet, but know that about a quarter cup is a serving. It can be even a little bit less than that, depending on the type and your nutritional needs. But in general, a quarter cup is a serving of dried fruit to help um, expand it into a larger snack. Make sure you pair it with some other things. So that's when you can do like your own kind of trail mix with some unsalted nuts and some seeds to give it a little bit more fiber, make it more filling, those healthy fats. Again, you want to make sure it's something that you enjoy. Cranberries are a great one. I think cranberries
Mm-hmm.
are wonderful and they're lower in potassium than like raisins. So those are a great option. Look for the no sugar added, and that'll really be helping you out there.
And I recently discovered, maybe a month ago, that there are flavored cranberries, like cherry flavored, orange flavored.
That's just like juice, right? They just put it in juice
I
and then
think
dehydrate
that's
them.
it. I love cranberries. I'm not sold on the flavored ones. It's kind of overpowering, whatever flavor it is. And I like to, if I make up like some steeled oatmeal, steel, whatever oats, whatever it's called, I'll make some of that up, sprinkle in some cinnamon, and I love to add a little bit of cranberries, not a whole bunch, to it. Mix it up, and it makes a great breakfast, high in fiber. I love that. But I try those other ones. It's like, interesting. Some of you guys out there may like, if you don't like the taste of cranberry, the cranberry taste is not there. It's got a different taste. So you might want to take a look at some of those. Oh, Joyce says there's also flavored raisins. Holy cow. Yeah. You cut out. I think you might be running low on battery there.
Did you notice I was switching? So now
Yes.
I'm charging new ones.
They last about an hour, a little under an hour.
And I've been on calls all day. So I've been trying to charge them as best I can.
There, Lester got it. Steel cut. I couldn't think about it. I just knew it was something. How they were cut. All right, everybody. We are at the top of the hour. So I want to thank everyone for being here. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead, hop over to YouTube, click that subscribe button. That way, every time I schedule a future show, you'll get a notification. You'll know what the topic is and when, and you can just click a little button and YouTube will send you a reminder. If you can, help us grow. Let's share these videos, get it out there. Oh, there was one question I wanted to ask you real quick. Arthur had posted it. Can someone with CKD and diabetic type 1 go completely plant-based?
Absolutely. I have clients that are plant-based with type 1 diabetes and CKD. There is definitely an art to it, and there is a different nutritional balance involved. 100%. I would definitely recommend working with a dietitian when you're making that transition, and renal dietitian or diabetes dietitian. So I told you guys I'm certified in renal nutrition. There are dietitians that are certified in diabetes education. They're called CDEs, and you can work with them to help with the diabetic management. I also highly, highly recommend working with a diabetic dietitian because they know their stuff when it comes to diabetes. And if diabetes is what caused your kidney problems, I always say you've got to take care of the root cause of your kidney problems, and that will help your kidneys. So if diabetes is causing you problems, see a diabetic or a diabetes dietitian to get that better resolved.
Yep. And a dietitian is by far the best resource to help you in managing your overall health. And when it comes to kidney disease, I manage my blood pressure. I do all those things that my doctor says. But the one thing that I kind of have control over is what I eat. And by working with dietitians, specifically renal dietitians, they help me make better choices in what I can eat. And if you don't work with the renal dietitian, chances are you're going to be over restricting yourselves and you're not going to be enjoying food. You're going to be sitting there saying, what can I eat? I'm bored. When you work with one, you learn about portion control and so much about what's right for you. And we're all a little bit different. And it makes eating so much fun again. I love eating, and I look forward now to trying to make my own meals, learning how to cook. I wish I had more free time and could take cooking classes. Once COVID's over, I'm going to take cooking classes to learn how to chop like you, Jen. You sit there, you're like magic with those knives. I'm taking my time. My slices are all different sizes. But anyway, I want to thank everyone for being here. Thank you, Jen, for another great show. Lots of great information. Helping kidney warriors kick kidney disease to the curb. All right, everybody. We will see you next week. Have a great week. Stay healthy. And if you got snow in your area, like here in Ohio, stay warm. See you guys later. Bye.